Yes.
Wood. Craig.
Yes.
Gingarelli.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Motion passes 11-0.
Next is the Budget Committee of the Whole. Mr. Sampson.
Okay, the first, adopt the $19,651,757 mayor's executive budget as the fiscal year's preliminary budget for statutory compliance procedures subject to revision and additions of remaining fund budgets prior to final adoption, and I would so move.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion carries.
Next, set public hearing on the preliminary budget for Monday, July 27th, 1992 at noon and also at 7:30 p.m. the same day, and I would so move.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Next is to direct the city clerk to publish a notice of the public hearing in accordance with Montana law, and I would so move.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion carries. Next is the Cable TV Committee. Mr. Hermes.
There's, I believe, one action item that is on the MCAT funding increase. The committee recommends that the City of Missoula not open the agreement for local cable television administrative services, and I would so move. If I could speak to that.
Mr. Hermes.
It was felt that the timing of opening the contract was not good, and a precedent might be set for doing that with our other entities in which we have contracts. Bob Cushman, I think, mentioned that Al Sampson had encouraged them to come tonight. Actually, it was Dennis Taylor when they asked whether they could speak again after this was voted down in committee. Dennis Taylor mentioned that the one place to do that would be tonight at the public hearing, so I wanted to correct that.
Any further discussion? Ms. Rosenleaf.
I have a few questions, in part because I'm new on the council and in part because I am TV illiterate, do not possess one. So my first questions have to do with this memo that you distributed this evening, Mr. Hermes. I have no idea how to put these shares, market shares, into perspective. For example, I have no idea what Encore station is. Can you tell me what that is?
Sure. Encore is a option cable service that people can buy for an additional, I'm not sure what it is, $1 or so, maybe $1.50 a month, which they could subscribe over above basic cable. So the data which you're talking about, I was requested to provide some information on MCAT viewing, and that's what I've done here. Nielsen estimated that the majority of the figure you see highlighted actually belongs to Encore rather than being split 50-50, but I split it just as a best estimate. Actually, it's probably an optimistic estimate. So what you would see in May of 92, there are 98 homes per quarter hour watching any other cable services which are measured, which would be Encore and MCAT. Mm-hmm. So splitting that figure, the average quarter hour viewing of MCAT is about 49 homes per quarter hour. Now that's an average over a 7-day period, and there is times when they're running community message boards, and there are times when they're airing city council meetings. So that average, no doubt, is higher now than it would be, let's say, last night at 10 o'clock where they had community message service on there.
Okay, can you compare this at all to some other communities' market share for community access stations?
I don't have any data like that. I just have data based on what Missoula currently is using. I could probably get that for you if you wanted it.
Long term, you know, when we reopen these negotiations, while these numbers appear somewhat low, I would also comment that if in general viewership of cable is going down in a number of areas, personally I think that's good news, but maybe people will read more, but it doesn't mean a lot to me unless I understand it compared to some other community. If MCAT is competing with whatever that sports channel is you know,
Yeah.
obviously, it's not going to have the same.
Yeah, the basis,
there.
you know, we've never tried to, or at least we've talked about it before, never compared MCAT to other, actually even cable services. The concept is narrow casting and
Right.
getting those specific issues out that people are interested in.
Right.
So numbers always haven't been real important in terms of, I think, the city council's feelings on MCAT. The one number that is, you know, 1/4 of 1% is using Missoula Television MCAT on a quarter-hour average. But again, that isn't necessarily an important number for you. But I was asked to provide the data, and I did that.
I appreciate that. It's hard for me to put it in perspective. Then my other question is, what is our annual franchise fee that we're collecting?
Currently, we collect 5% of the TCI franchise
And how
total
much is that?
income that they collect from their subscribers. That was estimated when we did this to be about $100,000, and that's what the 5-year contract was based on.
And we don't
Currently,
have
I think we're at about $160,000, $170,000 a year. Is that right, Chuck?
Yeah, you were running about $35,000 a quarter, which is $140,000, but with TCI's rate increase, you get a share of that as well. So the last quarter was $39,000 and several $100. So if it were to go up to $40,000, then you would be up at $160. On SATCOM, Jim might know more than I do because I didn't participate in those negotiations, but if the SATCOM ordinance and agreement is ever fully enacted, I believe, and I've heard, but I don't have much basis for that's somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 a year from
Thank you.
SATCOM.
Mr. Harrison.
This discussion on MCAT always puts me in a quandary. The idea of a community access channel is an excellent one, and it's one I support. And I think it's one that needed to be explored, and that we're in the process of doing so right now. And I know that many may not believe it, but I still believe there is room for improvement on the MCAT, even though they've progressed some here. The question of council support keeps coming up, and I would have to guess that Missoula ranks in the top 1% of communities across the nation for its monetary support for this endeavor, or this type of endeavor. That's my own guess. It's my no surveys, no anything. It's just my guess. But over the last 3 years, we've given over $250,000 of support. And many groups in this community would gladly receive less than that type of support. I feel the request for the increase at this time is fairly untimely. MCAT is not a city department. However, city departments such as the police department, the fire department, health department, the streets department did not receive a 28% increase when we annexed on the outskirts of the community. I guess if and when we do allow this type of increase for anyone, it should be weighed against the needs of other city departments. I think the budget is the time and the place to do that weighing, and I don't think we should separate it out as we've done here. It's my hope in the long run that as time goes on that this idea of the community access channel will be able to be more self-sufficient in the future, and I realize that may take some time, but if we're not able to realize that, I don't know about supporting an entity outside the city with this type of support, but I do believe that we need to weigh this in light of the broader picture that we're looking at.
Mr. Reedy.
Yes, I agree with Doug. I think 28% is ludicrous. Right now the legislature's meeting over there, and we don't know what our fate will be. They could take some of our money away in an eye's flash. I think it would be an awful strain on the budget to increase any department or anything 28%. I just think it's unimaginable. We funded $100,000. I think that's enough, and I will support the motion that came out of committee.
Mr. Horton.
Yes, most people don't realize that half Missoula's school children don't have basic immunizations. They also don't realize why. This is the type of thing that Ellen Leahy with the Health Department is in the process of working up an informational series on, or at least we've discussed to be presented on MCAT. I believe MCAT has the potential to be a good public forum, present valuable information, but if it provides no other service than that of a battlefield between opposing views, then it's, I guess, up to us to determine the size of that battlefield. You have the young idealists, the status quo, and the young idealists become the status quo, believe it or not. You have diverse groups, and essentially that's what defines democracy, the ability of diverse groups to express their opinions. When you lose that ability, you tend to see the civil order fall apart at the seams. I don't think we can necessarily judge a service by its low usage. If we did that, we wouldn't have any mountain lion in Missoula, that's for sure. I think we have to judge a service by its growth and service potential. And both these are growing public facilities. I know that Mountain Lion is providing a valuable service and is a growth product, and it is a product. I believe that MCAT is also a growth product as far as a forum. I know MCAT may feel that they're held captive by their budget, but I've encouraged them to look at this as protective custody. I believe it's a major mistake for them to attempt to open their contract financially right now. There are some circumstances that the public at large may not quite understand, but generally it's related to the SATCOM MCAT situation as far as franchise agreement, carrying the signal, the rattlesnake. It's related to money. And I believe the best thing I can do for MCAT is to keep that contract from being opened, because once it's opened, your lamb's at the slaughter.
Mr. Sampson.
Yes, my first problem with the MCAT request was one of procedural matter. Other departments, other people who come to the city council or to the budgetary process for monies go through the usual budgetary process of first going to the executive budget procedure. MCAT did not follow this. I'm not sure why, but nevertheless they did not. And when they said that I urged them to come to this meeting, why I did tell them it was a budgetary matter and this would be the place to speak about it. After I got through with the meeting on June the 24th, at which I was apparently at complete odds with most of the people in attendance, or all of the people in attendance, and in fact with some of the city council, I thought, well, maybe I'm wrong, so I will go out and take a little poll, because I was going to a function that night that was somewhat of a social gathering, so I decided I'd ask the first 20 people that I saw what they thought of MCAT and whether we should give them additional funding. I didn't take any regard as whether they were in or out of the city, but turned out there were about half and half in the city and half out of the city. Most of the people had seen MCAT, knew when I said the access cable TV, well, they knew what I was talking about. The only ones that indicated that they did any viewing of it to any extent was the ones who viewed the city council. And here again, there was as many of them outside the city that viewed the city council on it and was interested in the city council on it as those in the city. There were all of them, all 20 of them, said that we should not give any additional funds to MCAT. There were some of them wanted to cut off the funds, but there was none of them that was in favor of increasing funding for MCAT on it. When we discussed the viewership, they wondered why there were not more of the public agencies on MCAT. The only public agency as such that is on MCAT is the City Council. And when I informed them that the only reason the City Council is on MCAT is because we, in addition to the $100,000 a year, we, through a grant in combination with the League of Women Voters, hire people to put us on. The $100,000 does not put the City Council on MCAT. This is additional funding that we have to come up with the League of Women Voters. The most interest that people have with MCAT is City Council meeting, and they would like to get the same thing with the county commissioners, the same thing with the school districts, and so would I. I think it is a very good public usage of that channel, but unless somebody wants to come up with the money to hire somebody to put it on, to, like we have John Fletcher out here. John Fletcher has now quit, and somebody else is taking his place, but those are paid people, not paid by MCAT, paid by the city of Missoula on that. So I think if they want to increase their viewership, I think they should go out and find somebody to sponsor the other public agencies. They want the additional money because their equipment is running out. They were given the equipment, they were giving monies, and they are the experts in the business. They should have set up, or should be setting up, an adequate reserve for replacement of that equipment. There's nothing to say that we're going to come up with another $175,000 worth of equipment when that is worn out. So it is only good business for them to set up an adequate reserve for that. And I would urge you to support the motion as it come out of committee and leave the funding as it is. This is a continued support of MCAT. The motion that is in here is a continued support of MCAT at the level that we have been supporting it for the last 3 years.
Mrs. Gingarelli.
I was not at the June 24th meeting, so I have a procedural question. Is it possible to consider MCAT's funding request outside of this motion itself? Can they come back later in the summer during the regular budget process and ask for this funding? And before that's answered, I'd like to make a few comments about MCAT. I do support it, and I agree with what Al said about the city. There being some questions about why is it only the city council that's covered, and part of that I think is the fact that MCAT is new. A lot of people don't know about it, and maybe further exposure could help that. I've been in meetings myself where, not at the city level, but in other city county related departments, where MCAT was not allowed to come in and film the proceedings, and I didn't agree with that, but I feel that part of that is just unfamiliarity with the services that they provide. I think that MCAT really does provide a great benefit to the public by allowing the public to see what we're doing here, by allowing people to watch it and question. And personally, I tape city council meetings when I'm gone somewhere and review them later on and look at other local programming on MCAT occasionally so that I can become more informed as a person who's involved in the community. And I think that's maybe one benefit that we haven't mentioned, that we as public officials can use MCAT as well as the rest of the public. So I would, being that I wasn't involved in this committee meeting and hearing all sides of it, I wouldn't necessarily oppose this motion, except if I didn't think if MCAT was able to come back and ask for the funding increase, because I would support the funding increase. So can we do that?
Well, you can. Up until the time of the adoption of the budget, you can consider anything that you want, and there are a number of funds outside of the general fund that this cable franchise fee is one of those funds that you will decide how much to put into the general fund and how much to allocate for other purposes, and so that opportunity exists. This is not only a budgetary decision. Of course, you would have to, at some point, if you were going to do that, have a motion to actually reopen the contract itself. But the budget determination and the contract decision would probably go hand in hand.
Maybe I should ask Mr. Cushman then, do you know, as the Vice Chair of the Board of MCAT, would your agency come and ask for further funding outside of this motion tonight, or what are your plans if this fails?
That would have to be a decision of the entire board, but I strongly suspect that if we had that opportunity, we would probably do so.
Any further discussion? Mr. Hermes.
Just to give some of the new council people some background, Al touched on it, and first of all, MCAT is not asking for an opening of the contract per se. They're only asking for an opening of the contract for increased funding. So, and Curtis has talked about, opening the contract in LS2 in general to all aspects. So that's something we'd have to decide. But when this came about, actually, the public access, I was serving on the committee with Dan, and we talked about it. There's really been some misconceptions by, I think, the council at the time and the public that really they haven't paid attention to where their money's going, meaning that when the 5% was to come from TCI, we all anticipated that 5% would come from their gross revenue. But in fact, what they did is turn that money back to the public. And now, as you know, they tack that 5% on as a fee or a tax to the people. That was a surprise, certainly to me. It was also a surprise that we would pay the League of Women Voters to air our council meetings. And again, I'm supporting that and glad that we do that. But those were some things that were really not planned on. I know $100,000 at the time was felt to be a lot of money, and still is, I'm sure, but would be a amount of money that could easily take care of all the needs through 5 years. So I'm a little concerned about 28% too. I think that's a huge request, just because the number of folks in the city has increased 28%. Like Doug said, the police department, I don't think, is getting 28% more, and the fire department and all the other agencies. But I don't blame, MCAT. I think with their contract ending next year, they're really positioning for that contract renewal of 28%. And certainly if they bring that forward now, we can get these discussions going. And, no doubt this 28% would be lovely if it passed this budget. But I'm a little concerned about that. And the other problem that I have with this, when we started this at the beginning, there was a promise that the needs for funding would decrease, and it sounded great at the time, and it still sounds great, that the need for funding would decrease because the public would run public access. The people would come forward from the community and take charge and run the public access center. And I think that's happening. So hopefully, and that was the promise at the beginning, that this 100,000 could go down, not up. And now when I see 28% as a huge increase, and we've already talked in committee that this doesn't include SATCOM's money, and when and if we get that money, that we would reopen that discussion for more money on top of this 28%. So I'm a little concerned, like, where are we going? If the city grows another 14% in 4 years, do we give them another 14%? Where does it end? And I spoke to that when I came back from Memphis at the meeting that I attended. I said that the city needs to decide what level of involvement in this very expensive project we want to get into. If the public runs it and it's a low-cost operation, then as it should be, I think, that's great. And I would agree with Doug. I asked the question about the level of involvement. We are giving way more than any other city of the 131 that I talked to. And again, I'm not against that, but a 28% increase I am against.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Conservation Committee. Mrs. Craig.
The committee recommends the council approve the easement for Montana Power on city-owned land in the Rattlesnake. And I'd like to make a substitute motion. The committee recommends the council approve the easement for Montana Power on city-owned land in the Rattlesnake, subject to review and approval by the U.S. Forest Service. And I would so move.
Is there any discussion? Roll call.
On the easement motion as amended, Horton.
Yes.
Laughlin.
Yes.
Potts.
Yes.
Reedy.
Yes.
Rosenleaf. Sampson.
Yes.
Wood. Craig.
Yes.
Gingarelli.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hermes. Motion passes 11-0.
Finance and License Committee, Mr. Sampson.
First, the meeting of June 25th. Committee recommends that the council adopt a resolution authorizing participation in compliance in the state surplus property program, and I would so move. This is a continuation of the existing status quo of the program.
Any discussion? Public comment? Roll call.
Laughlin.
Yes.
Potts.
Yes.
Reedy.
Yes.
Rosenleaf. Sampson.
Yes.
Wood. Craig.
Yes.
Gingarelli.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hermes.
Yes.
Horton.
Yes.
Resolution passes 11-0.
That motion should have included authorizing all necessary signatures also. Next, Street Maintenance District. Committee recommends the council adopt a resolution levying a special assessment and tax on the lots, pieces, and parcels of land situated within the Street Maintenance District Number 1 for the purpose of defraying the cost of flushing and removing street rubbish from streets and avenues in said district during the fiscal year 1993, and set public hearing on the resolution for July 20th, 1992, and I would so move. This is, again, the downtown street maintenance district, and to put that back in place or continue that in place.
Discussion. Mrs. Gingarelli.
Al, would you explain this a little bit more? I was not here for this meeting last week, and I was not clear on what this program is.
There's a maintenance district in the downtown area, and I'm not sure just exactly what the geographical area is, but there's no change in the district this year, that set up similar to an SID, but it's a flushing district where they come and clean the streets and remove the trash, and it's assessed to the adjoining property owners in a equitable manner on it. This has been going on for numerous years, and this is merely a continuation of the same thing.
Further discussion. Public comment. Roll call.
I would just add that one reason for the assessment is they receive a higher level of service. Around the city, everybody gets it once a month, whereas downtown gets it 2 to 3 times a week. Potts.
Yes.
Reedy.
Yes.
Rosenleaf. Yes. Sampson.
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Craig.
Yes.
Gingarelli.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hermes.
Yes.
Horton.
Yes.
Laughlin.
Yes.
Resolution passes 11-0.
Next, the committee recommends the council adopt a resolution levying a special assessment and tax on the lots, pieces, and parcels of land situated in Russell Park West Park Maintenance District Number 428 for the purpose of defraying the cost of park maintenance in said districts during the calendar year 1993, and set public hearing for July 20th, 1992, and I would so move. This is the one park maintenance district that we have, and it's off of Russell Street.
Let me ask a question about that. Why is this calendar year instead of fiscal year?
Well, actually, these have all been historically calendar year, and we changed the street maintenance district to be fiscal year this year because the assessments all go out in fall for the subsequent year. But Ed Clay continually does his estimates on fiscal year, so we put this one as a fiscal year basis, the street maintenance district.
Discussion? Public comment. Roll call.
Reedy.
Yes.
Rosenleaf. Sampson.
Yes.
Wood. Craig. Gingarelli.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hermes.
Yes.
Horton.
Yes.
Laughlin. Potts.
Yes.
Resolution passes 11-0.
Next is claims. Pursuant to the authority granted at the last council meeting, the committee approved claims totaling $673,987.06 and recommends the council ratify this decision at its July 6th council meeting, and I would so move.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion carries.
End of the report of June 25th, and now the one for July 6th. Committee recommends the council adopt a resolution transferring appropriations within and among the expenditure classes for the fiscal year 1992 budget, and I would so move. They are printed on the back of the sheet before you tonight, and they're the end of the year ordinary budget transfers.
Discussion. Public comment? Roll call.
Rosenleaf. Sampson.
Yes.
Wood. Craig. Gingarelli.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hermes.
Yes.
Horton.
Yes.
Laughlin. Potts. Reedy.
Yes.
Motion passes 11-0.
Public Works Committee, Mr. Potts.
There's one item. It's a non-agenda item, but it is a contract award for project number 92-021, California Street Curb and Sidewalk Improvements. This takes two motions. So first, I need a motion to suspend the rules.
You've heard the motion to suspend the rules. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. Mr. Potts.
Then I move the awarding of the project number 92-021, California Street Curb and Sidewalk Improvements.
Discussion. Mr. Harrison.
I'm going to pass on this. I may have conflict of interest here.
Further discussion?
He should read the entire motion into the record.
Bill, we need you to read the motion.
Let's see, it's project number 92-021. Committee recommended the council award the construction contract for project number 92-021, California Street to George Galbavy Contracting for the amount of $25,745.85 and to return the bid buds to all unsuccessful bidders, and I would so move.
Now, is there any discussion? If not, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Sampson.
Yes.
Wood. Craig. Gingarelli.
Yes.
Harrison. Hermes.
Yes.
Horton.
Yes.
Laughlin. Potts.
Yes.
Reedy.
Yes.
Rosenleaf. Would the past care to change his vote?
No change.
No change. Contract passes 10-0-1.
Rules Committee?
There was a meeting this evening, I believe. This could just be handled, information for the council. There were three items concerning limiting public hearings, possibility of cutting time on council meetings to midnight, land use public hearings, and what it was recommended that we do and adopted, that the council try to limit on their own the number of public hearings that we schedule to 3, and it was suggested that we get a large daily planning calendar that we can put in the council office meeting room there and make some sizable notes as to what the public hearing will be about, and so we can get a best guess on the length of the public hearing. Also urge
Bob, can you check your microphone?
Sure. Also urge the mayor to ask OCD to keep the council up on lengthy items that would take place in public hearings. So it was felt that we would try this for a period of time, perhaps 6 months, and if this works to keep us out of midnight, we'll do that. Otherwise, we may actually pass a motion to limit the number of public hearings.
Okay. Go now to council comments. Mr. Laughlin.
Is it on now? The other evening, I was privileged to be a witness to the county commissioners in this room and their hearing. And although they didn't come close to tying our record for endurance, I do want to congratulate them. And I guess to title the congratulations is that on the integrity of the system, for the want of a better expression, in regarding Walmart, whether you were for or against or impartial, I think the commissioners did a good job. What I seen, I left a little after 9 o'clock, and they were just getting down to the 100 people mark. At that time, or originally I think there was about 140 that I counted in the room. So I think it's a compliment to them for the system, for making the system work, and for working the system. Thank you.
Ms. Rosenleaf.
I have a couple things. The first one is to request excused absence beginning on Wednesday the 8th, and I'll be returning on Tuesday the 14th. I'll be out of the state. Wanted to bring up the point about the whole bicycle coordination and pedestrian and so on, and criticism that has been levied regarding use of federal money to encourage pedestrian and bicycle use. And I would simply point out that there are many members of our community who do use these forms of transportation year-round and who face sometimes significant barriers to doing that, and we should encourage people to use those forms of transportation. One of the ongoing barriers is, of course, the Orange Street underpass, and I would like to see if we could get some carbon monoxide air quality measurements, if we could just put the machine down there and measure the quality of air in the Orange Street underpass, because I would be willing to venture a guess that it doesn't pass year-round down there, whereas Malfunction Junction is some of our problems are more problematic over the winter periods, but there being very little ventilation under the underpass, it's probably a problem year-round. I also attended a meeting that was sponsored by the Public Housing Authority, in which residents were invited to come and share their grievances with some members of the board. Councilmember Horton was also there, and I was glad to see the board invite residents to come and participate in that forum. However, I was somewhat discouraged by the process because I didn't feel that it actually encouraged participation, that in fact some members of the board made statements that effectively shut communication down. And their purpose was to gather information for formal grievances. I think there's a significant amount of information that is perhaps not going to come in the form of a formal grievance that would be more fact-finding in nature. Several agencies in town have requested to meet with the Housing Authority Board. This meeting has not been scheduled, and that request has been made since around January, and was made again at the meeting last week, and I'm really hopeful that that is going to transpire. I've been playing phone tag with the chair of that board, but there are a number of things there that concern me, and I hope that they will open their investigation to include more general fact-finding and information gathering as they search for a new management situation for the Housing Authority. I also wanted to update the council just briefly on the negotiations with Montana Rail Link. The mayor and I were at meetings again today. We've scheduled weekly meetings with Rail Link and the Neighborhood Association through, it looks like, the middle of August. And there's, I wouldn't say a great deal of give on either side, but we are talking to each other still, and some interesting ideas coming forward, some interesting concepts from other communities, and at least I think we have a respectful communication and are proceeding through an agreed upon series of topics, at which time we'll come forward with more of a report.
Thank you, Kelly. Mr. Wood. Mrs. Gingarelli.
I've also gotten some comments about the CMAQ money, or more commonly known as congestion mitigation and air quality, the $30 million. I had a conversation with Mike Kress today about process and also some questions to him about whether this money does in fact have to be used for transportation-related carbon monoxide reduction as opposed to any kind of carbon monoxide reduction. And he said that his interpretation of the way it's written, it does have to be transportation related. And I know I talked to Joe about that earlier on, but I wanted to hear it from the transcript. So I guess it does have to be transportation related. Another comment that he made about this issue of bicycle pedestrian studies and using that, he said that the guidelines that were sent down by the Federal Intermodal Transportation Efficiency Act, which is where we're getting money from, were very clear that bicycle pedestrian projects were ranked very high on the level of eligibility, so that was one of the main reasons for including those. And I think there have been several questions about that, and so there's one answer for that, the reason why that was included. And the other thing that Mike said was to encourage people who have questions or suggestions about ways to spend this money to write to him and include those suggestions on a piece of paper and write to him, Mike Kress, care of OCD, 435 Ryman, Missoula. And he would be happy to receive any comments from the public.
Thank you. Mrs. Craig.
As a member of the Health Board, I drove out to meet with the residents and look at the conditions at the Village West Mobile Home Court. The conditions at the court were unbelievably terrible. There was raw sewage laying on the ground that I won't describe to you now. Garbage, weeds, huge potholes, problems with electrical and gas. There's 25 trailers and about 75 people, and a lot of them children. They can't move. It's expensive, and there's no place for them to go, so they're just trapped there. The health department is trying to help them, also Montana People's Action, and the residents have now formed a residents association, and they need our support. Ray Bean of Hamilton and James McDonald from Norco Products are the owners of the mobile home court.
Mr. Harrison.
I was somewhat surprised that the commissioners voted against Walmart, though I can see the logic, I guess. Not allowing Walmart would mean no new jobs, which means less money for people to get in their cars to go shopping. And that should help keep the traffic down. It just occurred to me that if no one lived here, the air would be great.
Mr. Hermes.
I was asked to read a letter by one of the folks in my ward, so I thought I'd do that real quick. It is from Peggy Crawford of 223 Sentinel here in Missoula. It's concerning the $30 million that Missoula will receive or may receive on air pollution. She starts off, from what I have read, the Missoulian, the city seems to be leaning toward solving this problem by funding a variety of bicycle programs. Although I'm an advocate of biking, I think that the number of people likely to ride bicycles in Missoula during the winter is small and the money could be better spent. 2, since the source of pollution is traffic congestion at Malfunction Junction, our priority should be reducing the congestions at that point. 3, I believe rerouting the traffic through other streets is the best and most long-term solution. A few years ago, the idea of moving the fairground site outside the city limits and extending Stevens Avenue through that area to 39th might bear some reconsideration in view of the increased traffic. In addition, we should look into extending Kemp Street through the mall area and joining it with Paxson. And as much as the mall is partially responsible for the traffic problem, they should be open to the idea. 4, we should also reconsider timing stoplights and enacting checks for pollution control on cars. In fairness to the people at OCD, I understand that the above ideas are being considered, but I still wish to bring my feelings to your attention. And along those lines, I think it was brought out that we sort of rushed, and the county sort of rushed putting together a plan for spending the money rather than, and it was almost like we threw all these ideas as fast as we could at it to get the money. And I think the public, through this kind of letter and things I've heard here, sort of has that perception. One idea I've heard about is putting an overpass on, I don't want to get too deep into it, but on 93, and I'm concerned about that idea. I think an overpass might work, but if there were one there, I think Russell makes more sense. My feelings there is you'd impact the business people less on Russell and probably do just about as much on traffic flow. If you put an overpass on Russell, I know the money, one argument is it's state money or federal money, it has to go to a federal or state highway, but I think Russell would impact that highway so it could easily be, construed as the same project. But by putting it on Russell, you wouldn't impact as many businesses. I'm thinking you'd have the fairgrounds on the south end and mostly residential on the other side of the street. As you go over, you've got the backside of the Tremper Shopping Center, and that traffic would flow up to Mount Street and actually almost to 39th without another traffic light. Whereas if you put it on 93, you're going to definitely take some, I think, some businesses out, Express Lube, and there's a host of them sitting there that would certainly be impacted. But more than that, I think, where would the traffic go? I mean, the traffic would stop at Stevens and the Holiday Village, and it would stop at the Heidel House. So I don't think we'd solve anything by putting it on 93. Thanks.
Mr. Horton.
Yes, in reference to Bob's and the mayor's problems with accuracy reporting in the Missoulian, it continually surprises me that there's still people that believe what they read in the Missoulian. I'm concerned about the conditions at the mobile home court. I knew Jim McDonald years ago. At that time, he wasn't the kind of person that would have allowed this type of condition to exist. And the only defense I have for such a situation is that it hasn't been accurately reported to him. God, Jim, I'd hate to have to admit I knew you if I found out that wasn't the case. The MCAT controversy, True MCAT was petitioning to open the contract for money. There was strong support at the meetings that I attended for not allowing that to happen, but to open the contract altogether if it were opened. And I think that would bring some major problems to MCAT should it happen. There are people that continually wonder why the government intervenes in their lives as much as it does. Things like barking dogs, and I'd respond because there's so many irresponsible owners that don't control their barking dogs. They wonder why they try to regulate things like fireworks. I was on South at Malfunction Junction, and there was a pickup truck with people throwing lighted fireworks out into traffic. I also saw two little boys, 5 to 6 year old range, lighting fireworks, anything from the small firecrackers to the big whistle chasers, and they had their face down about 2 inches from these things, waiting for them to go off, and then they would jump back and take off, unsupervised. I think probably my problem with the Missoula Housing Authority meeting that Kelly and I attended was that the professionals who represented clients who had claims of sexual harassment and other claims were not allowed to voice those concerns for their clients. These were professional people representing clients. Other than that, I thought the process of having a hearing was good, but it just seemed like it was a little inappropriate to shut out these professionals who were representing a number of clients who had legitimate complaints and who were under the impression that they would be heard through their professional representatives. I think I'll call it at that, Dan.
Mr. Reedy.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with the mayor on Missoulian editorial. I might have made it a little stronger words. In regards to carbon monoxide, at Malfunction Junction, I think we could have an educational program in the city of Missoula to teach people how to go through green lights. I mean, when you have to wait for 2 or 3 cars to get started before they even notice there's a green light, maybe that'd cut some of that off. Another thing, I think that when Reserve Street opens with 4 lanes, that'll take care of a good deal of that problem.
Thank you, Jack. Mr. Sampson.
A couple of different items. One is on the first day of July of this year, the Missoula Rural Fire District no longer had any paid people in the Rattlesnake. They have backed out of the Rattlesnake and no longer have anybody on duty 24 hours or any hours of the day up there. The city of Missoula now has one person around the clock manning that particular fire station up there. I haven't talked to either the mayor or the fire chief since last Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday, so I don't know where the negotiations are on who is going to pay for buildings and so on and so forth. But right now, the fire response in all of the Rattlesnake is the city of Missoula. It is not the rural on it, the initial response. The $30 million, we've had lots of comments on that. We'll continue to get a lot of comments on it. I, too, did some checking, and it seems as though we were somewhat mandated to put a reasonable amount of emphasis on walking and on bicycling. Whether or not this is correct or not, I think if you gave everybody in the city of Missoula a bicycle and closed all of every other street in the city of Missoula to bicycles, it would not make one bit of difference during the months of January, February, and March on the emissions on Malfunction Junction. I think if we really are going to get tough on the emissions, I think we're going to have to set some type of emission standards on vehicles. I think we're going to have to test, and we're going to have to jerk cars off or have them jerked off until such a time as they meet those standards. It's going to be expensive, it's not going to be liked, but if we're going to spend $30 million to stop the emissions, why, that is probably the most practical way of doing it. However, I think we are getting some black eyes on planning. Part of the monies is directed at planning at Malfunction Junction and planning on the bridge. And I think all of us are aware that maybe something should be done on some of that, all right. But as you've heard here tonight, there's some differences of opinion as to what should be done at Malfunction Junction, for instance. And if we do anything, why, for goodness sakes, we want to decide what is best to be done there and not just start unloading a shovel out there and start digging. The same thing is true of the Orange Street Bridge. I think everybody is aware and everybody is in favor of 4 lanes at Orange Street Bridge, but that does not mean that we're anywhere near ready to let a contract tomorrow for it. We need to have some planning and so on and so forth to go with that on it. The next item I was going to talk about was the request for the Attorney General's opinion in the Missoulian article, and Dan did an excellent job on that. I won't delve into that at all. I think that has been covered very good.
Mr. Potts.
As I was coming down West Broadway this morning, I seen a couple of the residents of Eagle Watch kick the door open, come out with their wheelchairs, wheel down and around on the sidewalk. And I think it's about 14 years, 13 or 14 years that particular project was in the hopper. And we finally got fruition of it.
Thank you, Bill. Comments from staff? Jim? Chuck?
Couple comments. Just to, Mayor Kemp has covered most of the comments I was going to make on the Attorney General Initiative Y-105 issue, but a couple aspects. We put a copy of all the correspondence between the city and the county since last November and Jim Nugent's city attorney's opinion on the issue on your desks or in your mailboxes, so you can read the issue for yourself, especially focusing on the letter to the Department of Commerce, phrasing the issue and their response, because I do believe neither in the Missoula County Attorney's presentation of the facts nor the Missoulians' presentation of the facts did the city's factual situation ever get presented correctly, and that will have to be very clearly done when it goes to the Attorney General's office. Additionally, Mayor Kemp has mentioned about no audit comments, and that of course is correct, but then after this issue came up last fall, we specifically asked our auditor what his opinion was, seeing that he audits many school districts and many local governments around the state, what his position on the I-105 controversy was. And he of course was somewhat reluctant, but he felt that the initiative I-105 was meant as a cap on the total taxes and the total levy, and was not meant to carve out or separate the individual levies that a jurisdiction had. And he also felt that the county's position was a fairly narrow or very narrow interpretation, and that leads to my last comment, is that in the Montana Constitution there's a specific constitutional clause saying that the powers of local government are to be liberally construed, and that's important in that it just puts a different perspective on when you have to interpret the laws of local governments, in that you used to have it decided against the governments if the question was if the issue was in question. Now you have a liberal construction of local government laws, and that's very important when you come down to determine how you interpret an issue like this. And it's not that I don't believe, and most of the cities in the state don't believe, and many of the counties don't believe that our interpretation is wrong. In fact, they've been following it for 6 years without any problem. But when you come down to interpreting this issue, a liberal construction versus a very narrow interpretation is an important difference, in that the liberal construction is guaranteed by the Constitution. Second, this Friday we'll be opening requests for proposals on fire station location land proposals, and they're due by Friday at 5. And I just want to know, and the council can be thinking about this during the next week, what sort of meetings you want to have and when you want to have them to review those proposals. Certainly I would say next Monday sometime is the earliest, and if you wanted to set an afternoon or other meeting, fine. It's really up to you. Every Wednesday is getting fairly compressed with the budget, and school district number 1 in the high schools would like to have a meeting on bond issues with the council, and that was tentatively thought to propose that for Wednesday evening, the 22nd. We are going to run into a crunch time coming up because there's still a lot of budgets to consider, and there's all these other funds that the council has to review and consider as well. So we obviously have plenty of time, but we may need to increase the meetings over the one meeting a week, or find other times to do it.
Any other staff comment? Chief Gibson.
Chuck Gibson, Fire Chief. Just to add a little bit to what Al said, we are in negotiations sort of on two fronts. One is the Missoula Rural Fire District. Chief Lacey has a proposal for a satellite station, which they can't afford, and also negotiating on staying in the current building, which they lease and control the lease, and they want us to pay for that, staying in that station. So we're kind of working in those areas. We're taken a little off guard. About 3 weeks ago, they let us know that they were going to pull their paid career people out. And then about a week after that, they let us know when, which was July 1st. So we're up there now, and I think maybe a lot to do with that, has to do with they don't have a chief yet. Paul Lacey's their acting fire chief, and they're probably a little fouled up politically there and exactly what direction we want to go.
Thank you, Chief. Any other staff comment? If not, we'll go to new business. Anyone have any new business? Referrals, Chuck?
Okay, on the referrals this evening, the first is a request by Rob Micken, Animal Control Officer, regarding proposed changes to Pet Shop Ordinance to Administration Ordinances and Resolutions Committee. Request by Rob Micken, Animal Control Officer, regarding proposed changes to Animal Control Ordinance to Administration Ordinance and Resolutions Committee. Request by Fred Rice regarding Al Meyer retirement to Administration Ordinance and Resolutions Committee. Request by Dennis Taylor regarding contract with Nancy Leifer for continuation of Housing Task Force Coordination Services to Administration Ordinances and Resolutions Committee. Request by Karen Abels regarding interviews for vacancies on Open Space Advisory Committee to appointments. Request by Jim Van Fossen regarding hazardous waste agreement with BFI to conservation. Request by Chuck Gibson regarding fire department copier maintenance agreement to finance and license. Request by Chuck Stearns regarding offer to purchase last 3 tax deed lots in Hillview Heights number 7 to finance and license. Request by Chuck Stearns regarding sale of Prospect PUD planned unit development land and distribution of proceeds to finance and license. Request by Chuck Stearns regarding Montana Municipal Insurance Authority financial statements for Missoula to finance and license. Request by Chuck Stearns regarding contract award for sewer pipe televising and cleaning to Public Works. Request by Bruce Bender regarding amendment number 1 to SID 501 Northwest Broadway Sewer to Public Works. Request by Bruce Bender regarding engineering services agreement for Maple Street improvements to Public Works. Request by Bruce Bender regarding SRF loan commitment agreement for SID 501 Northwest Broadway Sanitary Sewer to Public Works. Request by Joe Aldegary regarding support for proposed formula for distribution of transportation enhancement funds from ISTEA, that's capital ISTEA, to Public Works. Request by Curtis Horton regarding installation of sidewalk in 6200 block of Longview to Public Works. Request by Doug Harvey regarding change order number 2 to contract for project 91-025 Florence Hotel Top Hat Bar void rehabilitation to Public Works. Request by Doug Harvey regarding change order number 1 to project 92-025 1700 block of Ernest street improvements to Public Works. Petition number 7028, request by Missoula County Board of County Commissioners and HCP Corporation to vacate lots 1 to 21 block 2 Settlement Court in its entirety and the related common area, Hillview Heights number 6 to Public Works. Petition number 7029, request by Christian and Sampson Professional Corporation to vacate the property lying south of Mr. Cooney's property located in the Hartman Block, Cooney property by Kiwanis Park to Public Works.
Any other referrals? If not, we'll go to announcements of committee meetings.
Administration Ordinances and Resolutions Committee.
3:45 Thursday.
Finance and License Committee.
3 o'clock on Thursday.
Plat Annexation and Zoning Committee.
4:30 Tuesday, and then there's a special one, I believe it's at 3 o'clock in Greeno Park on Wednesday. I'll tell you more about it tomorrow.
Okay, Public Safety Committee.
3 o'clock on Tuesday.
Public Safety Ad Hoc Committee on Residential Parking Permit Program.
7:30 on Thursday, Mayor's Conference Room. And I would request that the Police Department and the janitorial staff be given a copy of the schedule because we've been locked out a couple times.
Kelly?
Curtis, with respect to the Public Safety Committee, I don't know, some of these things are held in committee, and the petition number 7026, the residents who are primarily involved in that are not available this week. They were available during the past couple of weeks, but they're out of town this week, so I don't know what other items you have to consider, but they won't be available to have this discussion tomorrow.
Then we may have a very short meeting indeed. If somebody wants to schedule, Mike, if you wanted to schedule pretty close in, you could probably do that.
Public Works?
Public Works is Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and we have a long agenda.
I've got appointments at 2 o'clock that was set up last week.
Mike, are you going to do the appointments in the council office or in the conference?
In the council office, there's a telephone conference with one of the applicants. And then another person is coming at 2:30, so we should be done by 2:45.
Wondering, Curtis, is there anything on public safety then? If Kelly's referral isn't on, aren't all of those other ones held?
Well, they are held, but...
Do we need to even have a meeting?
The noise problem at the Iron Horse Brew Pub is actually carried over from last week. There was a 2-week trial whereby the residents were going to see if voluntary compliance had worked. And actually, this is the 3rd week coming up. And I hate to not give them a hearing at some point, although we are flexible on the time.
Are they expecting though to come?
I don't know.
And that's tomorrow. They may not even know. Maybe we should just do this next week.
Well, I hate not to at least schedule, even if we schedule 10 minutes prior to another meeting, another committee meeting, because they may show up because we didn't have the meeting last week.
We'll start at 2 o'clock. Keep going.
Yeah, I could, okay. Yeah, Bob suggested 3:45, that's fine.
Or 2:45.
Well, Public Works could move to 2:45 then.
Okay, where are we?
Public Works is going to need an hour and a half at least.
We've got 12 or 15 items on there.
So what's your timing on Public Works again, Bill?
Was 2 o'clock. And it'll run 2 hours or more.
Hour and a half, please.
Okay, we'll go 1:45 on Public Safety, and if no one shows for this other issue, then we'll be there for Public Works.
1:45 public safety?
1:45, yes.
Okay, Rules Committee.
No meeting. And those items are all done, Jeff.
Appointments Committee, just Tuesday.
No, 2.
And the
2. In the council office.
Committee of Whole on the budget.
Wednesday at 7:30.
Cable TV Committee.
No meeting.
Oh, Al, one other thing on the Committee of the Whole, and you don't have to necessarily set it tonight, but I think Mayor Kemmis wants to get back to the school district to find out, is the council interested in having a discussion with them about the timing of bond issues? And the date and time suggested was the Wednesday, July 22nd, because you end your official meetings on the 15th, but there's going to be a lot of budget left to go. So I think if you do it that night, you should put some time limits on it so that you have some time for budget that night as well, or set 2 meetings that week, because it's starting to get to crunch time here pretty quick.
The meeting anticipated the evening?
Yeah, that's what they were thinking.
We're probably going to have at least one more evening meeting for the budget. or an afternoon. We're going to, whenever we get the request for proposals in on the fire station, as soon as the fire committee or group or whatever they put together there comes up with some recommendations, I think either the committee of the whole or the budget committee, which is all the same thing, should meet them to make a decision on what we do with the fire station. I don't know how long that meeting with the school district is going to take.
I don't think that it's feasible to think that you're going to do it in less than 2 hours, probably. It's just probably not worth it.
That night is shot then. So we'll have to figure, in fact, we should do the fire department well before that anyhow. As soon as we get this in, we should be setting that. We should set that meeting next Monday night, at least on that one on the fire. I guess we'll have to play it by ear on the other budget meeting.
So you do want to go ahead with the meeting on the 22nd with the school district?
I think it would be important to sit down and talk with them. I got called on the other meeting and I was out of town. I couldn't make it.
No.
So sorry I missed that. But, I don't know how many people here want to meet with the school district regarding their bond issues and stuff. Is it something that we will get enough interest out of the full council to do that with, or should we have the people that are interested? Well, that's all you're going to get anyhow, the ones that are interested in going. But do we want to set them up as a committee to meet with the school district?
I think that the purpose of this, just real briefly, is that I think the public is getting to expect more and more that there be some coordination among entities that are putting issues on the ballot. And we have an opportunity here to show that we are trying to do that. I think that if we do it right, that the school district will support our request, and I think that that would be valuable to us.
From the standpoint of strategy, do you think it's important that we not have established the amounts and so on and so forth with the fire stations before that?
I think that at least that you only be making a recommendation if you can. I mean, I think if we can meet with them before you made a final decision, that makes the meeting a lot more valuable to them.
I was going to suggest that we try to do them both on the same night. How about if we go 6 to 7:30 with the school district, and then 7:30 have the regular budget meeting, and just call it at an hour and a half?
I don't think that you're going to get good council participation after the second hour. Just speaking from experience. Okay. I think we have to do it in two different whacks.
Okay, anything else on committee meetings?
Conservation?
Tomorrow at 1:15.
Zoning subcommittee?
We'll go Thursday following the AOR, which I guess somewhere around 4:15 or 4:30 or whenever AOR finishes. And we'll be discussing low-density residential.
Okay, administration ordinances and resolutions Thursday at 3:45, finance and license Thursday at 3, plat annexation and zoning Tuesday at 4:30 p.m.
Chuck, I think let's change that PAZ to 4 o'clock, because Bill's the only one scheduled in there at 2, and that'll give him 2 hours. I don't want to sit around waiting for it.
Okay, PAZ, plat annexation and zoning Tuesday at 4 o'clock and Wednesday at 3 o'clock at Greeno Park. Public Safety Committee Tuesday at 1:45 p.m. Public Safety Ad Hoc Committee on Residential Parking Permit Program Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. Public Works Tuesday at 2 p.m. No Rules Committee meeting appointments Tuesday at 2 p.m. Committee of the Whole on the Budget Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Cable TV no meeting. Conservation Tuesday at 1:15 p.m. and zoning subcommittee Thursday at approximately 4:15 p.m. or after administration ordinances and resolutions.
Anything else? Adjourned.